i24 News Studio in Times Square in New York, this is Clear Cut Plus with Michelle McCory.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for watching. The president is not happy with a bipartisan deal to keep the government open past Friday. It's a deal reached by congressional negotiators from the House and Senate last night. Republicans and Democrats are praising the result, but it is President Trump's signature that matters, and he is not ready to sign just yet. Serena Marshall has the latest from Washington.
Okay, thank you all very much.
They've reached a deal to keep the government open, but President Trump
It's not doing the trick.
doesn't seem too eager to back it.
I can tell you that, am I happy at first glance? I just got to see it. The answer is no, I'm not. I'm not happy.
The agreement reached late last night by a bipartisan group of House and Senate members would provide just $1.37 billion for fencing and other physical barriers. That's more than $4 billion below the president's demand. And it would provide funding for 55 miles of new fencing, but limits the design to currently existing structures, meaning those prototypes are a no-go. But Democrats did back off their demand to limit the number of detention beds, agreeing to 40,000. That was the average daily population of those being held during the last fiscal year. It also includes money to improve holding facilities for family units. But the big question remains, will the president sign it?
If the president fails to approve this budget, he would be out of his mind.
But I think the president's going to go it alone on the border. I don't mind him taking that as a down payment and finding the rest through executive action.
If he doesn't, come Friday, the government runs out of money again.
Everybody should have learned the lesson. We should never shut the government down.
And even the president has said he doesn't want to see that happen.
We certainly don't want to see a shutdown, but you'll be hearing fairly soon.
And that was Serena Marshall reporting there. Now, so far, only a select handful of legislators have seen the complete text. Lawmakers say that the legislative text should be available for everyone tomorrow. All right, for more on this, we're joined now by Alfredo Rodriguez. Alfredo is a Republican strategist. He's also the founder and president of DICE Communications. And by Jeremy Ring. Jeremy is a Democratic strategist and is also a former Florida senator. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us. Alfredo, let's start with you. The president, Alfredo, isn't happy about this deal, but he hasn't ruled out signing it. What do you expect he'll do?
He shouldn't be happy. You know, there's been a lot of attention given to the short-term effects of these negotiations and ultimate compromise, and not enough attention to the long-term consequences. And I'm here to put Democrats on notice that their political posturing, the venom they have towards the president and his border security efforts are going to have negative effects for them come Election Day 2020. You know, the single most important priority of government is to protect its citizens and defend our sovereignty. You learned that in 6th grade history class, and apparently Democrats missed that day at school because they continue to ignore that responsibility, and I assure you that voters will not forget come Election Day 2020.
Jeremy, to Alfredo's point, is the Democrats' resistance on funding for border security going to be a problem for them in 2020? Have the Democrats now come across as weak on national security?
No. First of all, let me say the reason Donald Trump's upset is because he really is an awful negotiator. 12 months ago, he was offered $25 billion. It's almost like they offered him LeBron James. He wanted Michael Jordan, and now he comes back 12 months later, and he has the 12th man. So, I mean, he's really just not a good negotiator. In terms of, you know, the Democrats, is this going to hurt them? No, because most people don't feel this is a national emergency. Look, I live in Parkland, Florida. On Thursday, we are going to observe the 1-year anniversary of that shooting. Since that shooting, 1,200 youths have been killed by guns. That's a national emergency, okay? People believe kids being shot in schools are a national emergency, not
Jeremy,
what's going on the border.
Jeremy, certainly not detracting from the tragedy and from that issue, but let's keep this focused on immigration and illegal immigration and immigration reform.
Well, we're just talking about national emergency.
No, we're talking about national security. The question was, does this make Democrats look weak on national security, that there's been so much reluctance and pushback from them for funding a border security, and some of them calling to disband ICE and such. So the issue is immigration reform. But this particular deal, Jeremy, and we'll keep it with you, what did Democrats get out of this deal? Is there a victory for them when they've called a wall immoral and there will be some kind of physical barrier? How is this a good deal for the Democrats?
First of all, again, how can we say that they're against border security when they offered $25 billion a year ago? But, you know, why does everything have to be about a victory or a loss? I understand it's politics. It's not a victory when the government gets shut down for 35 days. And I'm not talking, and that's I said in the most bipartisan, nonpartisan way imaginable. It's a victory because, because now government will continue and it won't shut down, assuming the president doesn't veto this legislation.
Alfredo, you could say that it's a good deal if both sides hurt a little bit or don't have an outright victory to claim. And that's perhaps exactly what the American people want, some kind of compromise, something that gets the U.S. government working and that gets the U.S. government working for the American people. The president, however, is now saying that the objective is to finish the wall, not build the wall. And he says that he's going to get the funding from other areas. He's pushing this idea that the wall is being built and that there are parts that have been constructed and that they are under construction. Do you think that message will resonate with his supporters?
I think you got to take the president at his word. We will finish the wall. The wall will be built. And as for whether or not this is a crisis or national emergency, you know, I don't understand how you cannot see it as a crisis or an emergency. You know, illegal immigration is overburdening our schools.
Because the numbers don't back that.
It's crowding our hospitals. It's depleting our safety net. When you have illegal immigrants taking food stamps, collecting unemployment, collecting disability, it adversely affects the most disadvantaged in our country. That's a problem. And even more egregious than that, you know, we have records amount of heroin and fentanyl crossing our border daily, and it's destroying our communities and killing our youth. And even more egregious than that,
not coming in through the borders. Not coming in through the borders.
90% of heroin and fentanyl comes across the southern border. But even more egregious than that
not accurate.
is we have law enforcement, we have sons and daughters and spouses that are being murdered at the hands of criminal illegals. And if you don't consider that a national emergency, well, God bless your soul.
Again, the rhetoric and the action don't match. You can use all of those talking points, but the numbers
Jeremy,
just don't back it, and that 90% number is not accurate.
Jeremy, should the Democrats have used this opportunity where they had leverage to address other big issues in immigration reform, for example, DACA? Should they have used this opportunity to get some kind of a deal there?
You know, I wasn't obviously in the room negotiating,
right.
But yes, I mean, I'm sure those discussions were part of this. I don't know. I wasn't in the room. But from outside looking in, yeah, I would have to agree with that. I think they should have used this as an opportunity for the Dreamers. I don't know if it's going to be part of the final deal. I don't think it is. I'm sure that would have been leaked if it was. But again, I wasn't in that room having those discussions.
Alfredo, we've got about 30 seconds left. Going to give you the final word here before we go to break.
Well, you know, like I said early on, you know, Democrats are going to be held responsible when sons and daughters overdose on heroin and fentanyl. They're going to be held responsible when sons and daughters are murdered at the hands of criminal illegals. And they're going to be held responsible when law enforcement is harmed and our communities are not safe. We need to finish the wall.
That is absurd,
I absolutely believe that President Trump will finish the wall.
All right, unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you so much, Jeremy Ring and Alfredo Rodriguez. Appreciate it. Stick around. Coming up on Clear Cut Plus.